Okay, so we are going to start Photoshop Lesson C, which is essentially working with one of the things that makes Photoshop um, the photo editing tool that it is, and that is something called the Layers panel. So the first thing we are going to want to do is go to our Google Classroom and open up PSC1, which is a Photoshop file you're going to see. Um, it might tell you that it is too big to preview. Oh, there it popped up. It just is that way because the file size is a little bit bigger, and here you can see it's going to say there's no preview available because the file size is larger with the amount of layers that it has. It makes it so that we can't see a little preview, which is fine. It might take a little bit longer to download. Again, totally normal. Just wait till it pops up. In the meantime, we can talk about how the layer panel is essentially the reason that Photoshop is the tool that it is, because it allows us to work on separate elements of an image. And you kind of get to work with those elements independent of each other. And so as this comes up in Photoshop, you're going to see what I mean. Previous to this, we didn't really have a lot of what we call these layers over here, over on your right-hand side. Notice that the little layers tab is open, so that is going to allow you to see all of these layers. Right now, you're going to notice that you have on the far left side of the layer panel a little eye. What this is it's called the indicates layer visibility button, and all that means is that when you see the eye, it means that you can see that layer, and when we click on it and it goes away, it means that we can't. So notice that when we click on that little icon, the pen pops up, and when we click off of it, the pen disappears. Okay. We also have these little thumbnails, they're called, or little squares that show what exactly is on each layer. You can change the size of these by going to your layers panel, and then all the way over to the right hand side you have a little arrow with 3 lines. If you click on that and then go down to where it says panel options, you can click on the size of the thumbnail. So you can actually choose to have no thumbnail. You can, right now they're set at small, medium, and large. I prefer to have the medium icon, so I'm going to change mine to the medium and then click OK, and you're just going to notice that the thumbnails get a little bit bigger. So that's a personal preference. You can choose to set it as whatever you want, but I'm going to go with the medium one. So now let's talk about here. These are the layer names. So you can actually rename a layer very quickly, and we're going to do that a little bit later on. And then you might also have noticed that over on the far right-hand side, they have these little FX and little drop-down arrows. And again, we're going to talk about that as we continue to go through the lesson. But just pointing out the different elements of the layer panel, this is where we're going to be spending most of this lesson working, is with the layer panel. So let's talk about this layer visibility icon again. One thing I want you to do here first is to hold your Alt key down on your keyboard. And then I want you to go down to where the little eye is on the passport layer. So holding your Alt key, click on the little eye of the passport layer and notice what happens. When you hold your Alt key down, what that does is it shuts off all the other layers. Hides them all, I should say. So what this allows us to do is go through each layer to kind of see what is on each one. So the background, you can notice, is just white. Nothing changes there as we click on that eye to let it pop back up. Okay. Then go ahead and let's click on the coin and Coliseum layer to add these 2 items back into our graphic. Notice how the coin is below the Coliseum layer on our layer panel. So you can see here the coin is covered up by the Coliseum. So when you think about this, everything that is on top is shown, and then whatever is underneath it starts to get covered up. So you can see the couple shadow layer as we click on that. That was actually drawn with a brush, and we'll talk more about that later. The couple's picture comes on top of that. And then we have roses, the text for our Roman holiday, euros down at the bottom, and the pen. So you can see how they're all kind of layered on top of each other. Most of the passport is covered up at this point, and that would be true because it's at the very bottom of our layers. Okay, so now that all of those have become visible again, let's click on our pen tool and grab our move tool. We worked with our move tool back in Photoshop B. It's the very top tool on our toolbar. Go ahead and click on that. And now I just want you to see that when you drag right now, all you're dragging is your pen, I was going to say the pen tool, but just the pen. And the reason that is because our pen is selected. If we wanted to move, say, our Colosseum picture, we would need to click on the Colosseum and then click on our move tool, and that allows us to move the Colosseum. Okay? We cannot move something without being clicked on that layer. That's very important, and sometimes people will get frustrated easily. You have to be clicked on the layer. So let's click back on the pen, grab our move tool, and then we can move that pen back to where it was just at the bottom of the picture. If we wanted to, let's say we wanted our pen to be sticking out of the side here, but we wanted our couple, obviously this doesn't look very good because it's covering up the heads of our people, but we wanted the pen to kind of stick out here. What we could do is grab our couple and click and drag our couple layer all the way up to above the pen and drop it, and then notice that your couple layer now goes above the pen. Okay, pretty simple, but just so you're aware, you'll be like, why is that covering that up? Well, because you have to pay attention to your layer panel over here, and that's going to give you the layer of things that appear on your image. So that is one of the easiest ways to rearrange things that are on your image. Now, if you ever get to a point where you want to go back to when the file was opened, we can do something called file revert. So if you go up to your file tab and then go down to revert, go ahead and click that. It's going to spin and think for a second, and then it brings everything back to the way it was when we first opened the graphic. So that's a file revert. I wouldn't recommend doing that at any time, but just so you know that you can, that is an option for you. Okay, let's do a little bit more manipulating here with our image. Let's take our coin layer, target your coin layer, which means simply click on it, and drag it up so that it is above your Colosseum layer, and then drag and drop it. So you'll notice that the coin comes above the Colosseum. And we're going to do the same thing to this pen and euros layer. So click on your euros layer to target it, click and drag to drop it above the pen, and notice that the euros then comes above your pen layer. Okay. Now another thing that you can do in Photoshop is to merge layers. So let's notice right now that the coin and the Colosseum both have their own layer. But if we wanted to merge them together, we can do that. So what I want us to do is click on the coin layer, hold your control key down, and click on the Colosseum layer. And you're going to notice how they both get shaded gray, which means they're currently both selected. Now to merge them, what we're going to do is go up to that same place that we were at on our layers panel, where we have the 3 lines and the triangle pointing down. click on that and you're going to see that there's an option to merge layers. Now make sure you choose the merge layers, not the merge visible, because that would move. Merge visible is going to merge all of our layers together, and we don't want that to happen. So click on your merge layers, and you're going to see that those two actually join together. Okay. And now if we were to grab our move tool, you're going to see that they're moving together. Okay. If we wanted to rename that layer so we know, all you have to do is double click where it says the name of the layer. And then we can say coin and Coliseum. And then hit enter. And there we renamed our layer. Okay. The other thing that I want to show you with our layer panel is something called opacity. Like Coin Coliseum, if we go up here, notice that it says opacity 100%. That means that it's completely opaque or not transparent at all. And if we were to click on that 100%, you're going to see a little slider. And watch what happens as we start to slide this down. Watch in your graphic how our coin and Coliseum start to become transparent. So I'm going to put it at 50%, and you're going to see how you can start to see the background or that passport layer start to come through. That is an option, and one of the artistic things that you can do in Photoshop is addressing the opacity of a layer. It's still going to look fully opaque on your thumbnail, but when you look at your actual graphic, you're going to see that that is actually has some opacity happening for it to be transparent. Okay. And the last thing I want us to do is just to click on our passport layer. And one thing that you can do quickly, it's a keyboard shortcut, is if you actually, with your passport layer selected, click the number 5 on your keyboard. That actually changed the opacity of that passport layer down to 50%. And you can see that up at the top of your layer panel here. The opacity dropped to 50%. So obviously 1 would be 10%, 2 would be 20, 3 would be 30, and so on and so forth. So that's just a quick keyboard shortcut where you can quickly change the opacity of any one of your layers. So that is the first little section of this lesson. We're actually going to open up another graphic now. So you can close this down C1. You do not need to save. So when it prompts you, you can click no, and then we'll see you in the next video for our next section.